Hello, my friends. This is Lynda Lippin, and welcome to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Hello, my friends, and welcome back one more time to the Pilates Goddess podcast. This is your host, Lynda Lippin. Today, we're talking about bone health. Some of you may know that my specialty in this little world of Pilates and fitness is bone health. I am the bone health expert at the Wellness Universe. I teach osteoporosis and bone health Pilates classes in my own Strong Bones studio online in my Strong Bones program that, by the way, I have a round of my 4-week Strong Bones program coming up on January 8th. And right now it's in early bird pricing through Wednesday, December 7th. So if you would like to get on board with the Strong Bones Pilates train, now's a really good time to do it because you will save $100. And I, of course, all the links will be in the show notes. But bone health is a really kind of interesting topic. And it's very topical in today's world. Every single day, I read another article about osteoporosis, osteopenia, increased rates of bone loss in the world, in the United States, especially amongst women, also amongst men, but mostly women. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about what bone health is, what osteoporosis means, what you want to be thinking about moving forward in your life if you have low bone density or osteoporosis, what kind of exercise modifications you might need to be making, and really how to go about living the rest of your life, not worrying so much about your bone density. Now, when I first started teaching clients with osteoporosis, I was in a few kind of early Pilates discussion boards. This was before Facebook and LinkedIn had, private groups where we could all kind of powwow and talk to each other. So instead, people started online forums. You guys might remember Ning. There were a few of them that existed. And one of them was made and built by Pilates teachers for Pilates teachers. And I met a lot of great people, in that forum. But one of the biggest arguments and debates that we would have in the forum was modifying exercises for clients with osteoporosis. Now, osteoporosis means porous bones. That's literally what it means. It's from the Greek, porous bones. Our bones do have a lot of space in them. Bones are kind of like tightly packed sponges in a way, right? So there is some space. It does allow for some flow, a little bit of flexibility, but the bone inside is pretty tightly packed. And what happens as we age and with less activity, and with obesity, which is actually one of the biggest risk factors for osteoporosis, and obesity is rising. I believe that in the US, they're now stating that within the next few years, close to a quarter of the population will be considered morbidly obese. Okay, so we just got to deal with the fact that, obesity is a thing. Lots of people are obese, and obesity is, in fact, one of the conditions for osteoporosis. So when you're looking at bones that are weaker, okay, that simply means there's more space in them than structure. Okay. I'm sure you've all maybe gone out to a bakery, gotten what looked like a great loaf of bread, and you cut into that loaf of bread and you discover that there's like a big air bubble in that loaf of bread and that you have a lot of space in the bread, not a lot of bread. That's what happens to our bones with osteoporosis. And just like how we can't figure out what's going on inside of that loaf of bread until we actually cut it open and see, most people don't find out that they have osteoporosis until they break a bone. Now, there are tests. There are DEXA scans, and I know here in the U.S., in many places, DEXA scans are, covered automatically for women of menopausal age, and so you can find out sort of how your bones, are looking at any given moment in time. But what I would like to talk about is the fact that, number one, a lot of people aren't getting the testing. It's not always available to everybody. It's not always available to folks who don't have health insurance. It's not always available to people who may live in certain areas and have to travel long distances for these tests. So I would like to say that we could just make the assumption that if your client is postmenopausal, you should probably think, or you're postmenopausal, you should probably think about changing some of the ways that you're moving in the world, changing some of the ways that you're exercising, changing some of the ways that you're thinking about balance, and changing some of the ways that you're thinking about food and nutrition. Now, I am not a nutritionist, so any guideline I give you here is really just purely based on personal experience and things that I've seen in clients that I've worked with and women who I know. So just know that I'm not giving you medical advice here. What happens when you have osteoporosis is it basically makes your bones more at risk for breaking, and specifically more at risk in your thoracic spine, which is all of the spine vertebrae that attach to your rib cage, okay, which have a lot of mobility. It can cause those bones, those vertebrae, to actually crush fracture. And if you think about it, when you look at the spine, where the rib cage is, the spine curves backwards, right, to make space for the rib cage and for all of our really important internal organs that are housed in our rib cages and underneath our breastbone, like the heart and the lungs. And when you get a crush fracture in those vertebrae, what basically happens is the front of the vertebrae that's facing in towards your body crushes down. And that causes something that for many years, at least when I was growing up, was called the dowager's hump, which is a horrible phrase, but that's what we used to call it. And I think, we've all seen photos of men and women with the osteoporosis kind of humpback. We've seen, I live near a retirement home, so I see people walking around all the time with their walkers, with their clear osteoporosis fractures. If you look at photos of kids and adults who are concerned with technique and posture, basically, if you get an osteoporosis crush fracture in your thoracic vertebrae, you're kind of stuck in that forward head, technique, curled over position for the rest of your life. And this can cause pain. So osteoporosis itself doesn't have a lot of signs and symptoms until you break something or crush something. You don't get pain with it. You don't get other things with it. You get stuff after something has happened to one of your bones. And then things can be deformed and hurt for a very long time. In addition, if you happen to just break a bone because you fall and you break something, it can take, or you're in a car accident or something, it can take longer for those broken bones to heal, right? Because again, if your bone isn't remodeling quickly enough to stay strong and stable, obviously it's going to be harder for your bone to completely remodel and knit back together in the way that would normally happen after any kind of fracture. So realistically, right, whether you know you have osteoporosis or not, right, if we're treating your body as if you did, there are a few considerations, right, for exercise. The first thing is that we're really, while I talk a lot about bone strength with my clients and in my marketing materials, it's not so much that we, as lay people, are looking at strengthening bone, but what we're looking at is making everything a little more functional in the body so that the bones stay more supported. We're also looking at working on balance, specifically single leg balance, the ability to get up and down off the floor. And we're also looking at upper body strength, right? I would like my clients to have the ability to catch themselves with their arms if they fall and literally be able to push themselves back up if needed. So, what we're looking at in many ways are things like fall prevention, right? Which is going to be your strength and stability and your balance work. We are looking at muscle strength and endurance, especially around the lower back, around the glutes, around the heads of the femurs, around the upper thighs, right? Around the hips, around the wrists, around the upper body, around the arms and around those bones. And we are looking at keeping the spine long and extended, okay? Not necessarily bent backwards into hyperextension, but long and extended to have the best ability to move the body and do what we need to do every day without going into tons and tons of spine rounding. Now, when you look at the movements of the spine, okay, basically the spine moves forward, right, into something round, into a C curve, into rolling down, say if you're standing, or looking down and leaning over if you're sitting, okay? We have hyperextension, which is a back bend, all right? If you do yoga, that's your cobra. If you do Pilates, that's your swan, and things like that. Superman. You can side bend the spine, right? So the spine can move to the right and to the left. And then we can also rotate the spine. All spine movements can actually be done with people with osteoporosis and low bone density. But what we're looking at with osteoporosis is the load on the spine from gravity and resistance. So, with folks with lower bone density, or where we don't know but are assuming, we need to look at pure extension. And pure extension is when the spine is at its, some might call it a neutral. I don't like to use that term because the middle ground looks different on everybody. But it's that place where your spine is lifted up, your chest is lifted up, you can breathe easily, you can look in front of you, maybe your lower back curves a little forward, your neck curves a little forward, your ribs are behind you, you can breathe easily, and you feel lifted and long. From that position, somebody with osteoporosis can basically do all the spine movements except for what we call loaded flexion. And loaded flexion is flexion that goes with gravity, which means that simply the resistance of gravity is putting more pressure into the spine and into the vertebrae. Obviously, if the vertebrae that attach to your rib cage are weak, it makes sense, right? That rolling on those vertebrae in something like rolling like a ball is probably not going to be the best idea. It might also make sense, given that doing something like rolling up your spine in a sit-up might not be the best idea. Or rolling down from standing, again, might not be the best thing. However, the spine does like to flex. And with folks with low bone density, if you're on all fours, so that you're working actually against gravity, not with it, and your spine is not on the ground, your spine is up towards the sky, you can do cat-cow work there. You can do that flexion and extension. If you're a Pilates teacher and you're teaching on the apparatus, for example, somebody can go into elephant with a round back, into knee stretch with a round back, but you're not going to take that same client and have them curl their head up into loaded flexion for the 100 or the ab series. And you are certainly not going to put them into a position like tower or monkey or short spine or rollover, where all of the weight of their body and gravity is going into those thoracic vertebrae. So I hope that makes sense. Other than that, if you're moving from that extended lifted spine, whether you're sitting or standing, doing head-led rotations in each direction, doing a little bit of side bending in each direction, going into a little bit of hyperextension, can all be really great and really useful. In terms of muscle strength, what you're really looking at is strengthening the legs, strengthening the glutes, strengthening the abdominals, and really, really working hard at strengthening the back muscles, strengthening those spine extensors. I want you to remember that even for Joseph Pilates, the powerhouse did not just include the front of the body. Okay, the powerhouse included the torso three-dimensionally. So the back muscles are as important as the front muscles. They all work together to help support us. Now, as we're working on the leg strength and on the glute and butt strength and on the hip strength, and again on the back and the abdominal strength and on the arm, yes, and shoulder girdle strength, what you start to see is people moving more confidently. What you also start to see is people becoming more aware of their balance and when they're falling backward versus falling forward. I always encourage my clients, if they can, if they're going to fall, to try to fall forward. You can bend your knees, you can bend your elbows, you can catch yourself if you fall forward. If you fall backward, there's a good chance you're going to be hurt a lot worse. If you fall on your side and you can't catch yourself by bending your limbs, pulling in your belly, keeping your spine straight, and using the strong back and arm muscles to catch yourself, then what starts to happen is you see people falling right on their hip or right on their shoulder and arm and breaking bones and getting hurt. It's also important to work on single leg balance exercises as well. I encourage my clients to do this while they're brushing their teeth and washing the dishes. Stand on one leg, stand on the other leg, do something, in that way. I also encourage my clients to daily work on basic exercises. If you don't love doing squats or you think you can't do squats because it's bad for your knees or bad for your hips, what I'm going to say to you is squatting is sitting down and standing up. And if you wish to maintain your ability to stand up from sitting for the rest of your life, you need to do some kind of squat moves every day. You just do. If you need to be picking something up off the ground and you're keeping your spine straight and you're bending at your knees and you're leaning forward from your hips and you're using your arms to do that, and using your arms and your legs and keeping your torso nice and stable with your abdominal and back muscles supporting, then that's a deadlift. And if you were in the gym, you would then be doing deadlifts. Okay. If you fall forward and want to be able to catch yourself on your hands, on your arms, allow your elbows to bend and possibly push yourself back up off the ground, that's a push-up. So I hope you see where I'm going here. There are basic exercises that we could all be doing on a regular basis. And you can start these things standing, leaning against a wall. You can start these things, like I said, sitting on a chair and standing up. You can do these things in many, many ways. But the important point is that as we age, we have less estrogen, less other hormones, okay? It takes us a little bit longer to recover from exercise. Our muscles and our bones don't regenerate as quickly, right, as they used to. So we need more consistent, moderate exercise to do on a daily basis to keep us as strong and functional as we can be. Now, I can promise you that if you start exercising and if you start to really think about how you're moving your body, what your balance is like, adding some muscle flexibility, adding the ability to bend at the joints that you should be able to bend at, like your hips and your knees. And frankly, my friends, I have clients who have had, both hips replaced and are still able to do all of the exercises to keep themselves strong. Yes, we modify things and we reduce ranges of motion and we do all the things that I've talked about in other episodes to make things a little more doable, right? But they're still doing that work. And the more they do it, the better they feel and the better they function. I love hearing from my clients that they tripped and started to fall, but were able to catch themselves first by just pulling in their stomachs and squeezing their butts. I also like to hear that they started to fall, but were able to catch themselves with their hands or on their knees or in a position where they weren't hurting themselves and were able to just, stand back up. And that even if they have soreness and even if they have soft tissue injuries and even if they have some bruising, that is all still easier to handle, easier to get through, and easier to fix than breaking a bone or shattering a vertebrae. I also would like you to remember that your bones have a little bit of flexibility in them as well, especially the longer bones, the trabecular bones, which are the ones that they actually test for in osteoporosis because the bone loss shows up there first. One of the very early phosphate drugs, of the kind of Prolia, Boniva variety, as they were testing it, they stopped. And the reason why they stopped was that the product was in fact strengthening the bones, but it was strengthening people's bones so much that the bones had so little flexibility that people's bones were shattering. And I can't imagine how painful that was for those poor folks in the study who had that happen. But literally bones were shattering like marble because they had no flexibility or give. Remember, we've got muscles and tendons and all kinds of connective tissue that are attached to and moving these bones around. So what you're looking at is needing to be able to strengthen the muscles, right? Make the balance better, work on a more extended spine, work on all over body strength, right? And conditioning. A little cardiovascular work is not bad for anybody. It keeps the heart and lungs working well, helps, reduce cholesterol and reduce blood pressure. And then finally, the thing to then look at is what you're eating and how much you're eating. So, for most of the people I know, they're either eating way too much or way too little. No one seems to really have a middle ground. I can tell you right now that unless you are a teeny tiny human, there is no woman walking around, and definitely no man walking around over the age of 50 who needs to be eating less than 1,200 calories a day. Okay, you cannot do that and have enough energy in your body to expect it to be building muscle and remodeling bone. You just can't. In fact, we build most of our bone density prior to the age of 20. And I don't know about you, but prior to the age of 20, I was eating like 600 calories a day and trying to weigh under 110 pounds. And just to give you an idea, my healthy weight at 56, and I'm not always at my healthy weight, by the way, but my healthy weight at 56 is about 150. Okay. And I need to eat to maintain that weight, a good solid 15 to 1600 calories a day. So what I was eating during my prime bone building years was definitely not enough. Now, it's just so happened that because I chose fitness as first my stress relief modality when I was in graduate school getting my graduate degrees in philosophy and teaching at an undergraduate level, I was able to build my bones, right? So my bones right now are actually really strong. I had a moment where I was kind of close to the edge of osteopenia, which is where they start to be a little concerned about fracture risk. And I started doing a lot more resistance work and resistance training and fixed that right up. So what I recommend to you in terms of food, okay, is that you eat a good combination of protein, fats, and carbohydrates. These are all things that the body needs. These are all things that the body runs on. And get in the exercise. Even if you only do 20 to 30 minutes 5 days a week, it's better than nothing. So if you're going from nothing, that's what you're going to shoot for. If you need help with that, there are many of us out there who are happy to help you. Okay. I teach 30-minute strong bones, osteoporosis modified classes on Revel, which is a community of women over 40. The community is free to join. The website is hellorevel.com. And I will put the link to Revel and to my events page on Revel so you can see the classes I teach. I charge $5 to $7 for those classes. So if you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of time, and you can make the schedule, that's a great place to start. I also encourage you to go over to LyndaLippin.com, spelled just like my name, LYNDA, 2 P's as in Peter, I-N as in Nancy.com, and look at my Strong Bones Pilates programming. Okay, I have a 4-week program that's a little more intensive. That's starting January 8th, 2023. It's an early bird pricing now. And I also have a Strong Bones online studio where you can take classes and you can, do memberships and things there. And I frankly also teach privately online. So if you just want, me and you and get the best program for you, I can do that. So I hope that you found this useful. And I hope that what you take away from this is you need to move, you need to exercise, and that will help you maintain your bone health, maintain stronger muscles, maintain mobility, and hopefully decrease the possibility of you falling and breaking anything or having a crush fracture in your spine from osteoporosis. Okay. And frankly, I have plenty of clients who have had the crush fractures and are doing well because they started exercising and they started eating well and they started doing the right thing, and it works. It really does. My client Leslie went in a year of working with me online from having osteoporosis, having what they called marginal bone density, to having no osteoporosis with adequate bone density in a year. And I've never seen her live because she's on the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast. So this can all be done online. This can all be done with very little equipment, and this can be done effectively. And you can even possibly have fun doing it. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this discussion on bone health was helpful, was illuminating. All of the links for everything I talk about will be in the show notes. And I look forward to talking to you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Music brought to you by Nerd Salad. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, especially if you liked it. And please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks.